All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's live cooking demonstration. Bear with me just a moment while I get our camera set up. Good to go. All right, so again, welcome to today's live cooking demonstration. My name is Ryan Smith. I am the Wellness Program Administrator here with Georgia State University's Employee Development and Wellness Services. Today we're going to be making use of the WebEx platform. During today's presentation, if you've got any audio or video issues, please let us know using the chat box. Make sure that you send your message to all panelists. I'm joined today by my colleague Tony Pilote, who's going to be monitoring the chat to help out with any issues we may run into. So video, sound, any problems, send a message to all panelists and Tony will be able to help us out with that. Additionally, during today's presentation, if you have any questions, comments, ideas, things you just want to share with other people, go ahead and make use of that chat box as well. We'll be sure to address all the questions and comments at the end of today's presentation to share them with the full audience. We are also going to be recording today's session, so if you want to view it again at a later time or share it with a colleague, that will be uploaded to our EDWS YouTube page where we have recordings of past cooking demonstrations, virtual workouts, stretch breaks, yoga meditation, and more. So definitely check out our EDWS YouTube page. So, as I mentioned, my name is Ryan Smith. I am a registered dietitian by trade, so I am always dealing with the realm of food and nutrition. And today we're going to be making one of my favorite recipes. I've actually made this once before on the cooking demonstration event. It was about a year and a half ago. Some of you may remember it. This is an incredibly simple recipe. I've been having a pretty busy week, and whenever things like that happen, I'm always looking for recipes that I can whip up really fast and still know that I'm nourishing my body, making sure I'm getting the vitamins and minerals and fuel that I need to make it through and survive that busy week. So today we're going to be making avocado hummus and veggie pitas. These things are filled to the brim with plant-powered nutrition, so there's a lot of good in these. In terms of equipment that you might need, we're going to be making use of a food processor today. If you don't have a food processor, I will talk you through some alternatives that you can do in order to make sure that you're able to make the recipe at home even without that equipment. And I'm going to move the microphone a little closer. I see someone mentioning the sound is a little low. I see another commenter saying it's okay. Well, sorry about that. I tried to move it a little closer. Hopefully that'll help out. So you're going to need a cutting board and a knife, and then I've got a small food processor here. And what we're going to do is we're going to make homemade hummus. We're going to use chickpeas or garbanzo beans is the other name for them. You can buy them in the store in a can, and we're just going to use a single can of them. If you can find a low sodium or no salt added variety, that's going to be a better choice. This is Kroger's Simple Truth brand. It's lower in sodium. Walmart, Publix, other grocery stores will have a low sodium alternative as well. So look for that. It'll help us keep that salt level a little bit lower in the full recipe. So you will go ahead and add the chickpeas to your food processor. Now, if you don't have a food processor, you can do it by hand. It's going to take a little more work. You'll need a medium bowl and a potato masher or something that you can mash the chickpeas with manually. If you're going to do it by hand, I highly recommend microwaving the chickpeas for about 30 seconds. That will soften them and make the job a lot easier. If you got a food processor, though, that's definitely the simplest way to go. So we'll dump that can in there. And the next thing we're going to do is add a healthy fat to our chickpeas. And that will be an avocado today. Now, when you're picking out avocados, sometimes it can be tough to get one that's ripe. When you find them at the store, you can give them a little bit of a squeeze there, see if they give it all. If they're rock hard, they're not ready. You're going to need to wait a couple days for them to soften up somewhat. If they're really mushy, they're past ready and the texture is going to be a little off. We're looking for this middle spot there where you squeeze them. They give just a little bit. You can feel your fingers go in somewhat, but it's not mushy inside. So this one I think is ripe. It's always a little bit of a toss-up. And what we're going to do is I'm going to take my knife here, and you can see where the stem was. That's a good guide for us. We're going to gently press the knife, lining up with the stem, into the avocado until you hit a stopping point. So inside the avocado, there's the pit, and we're not going to try to cut through that. It's like a rock. So we're going to press, and then we're going to gently rotate the avocado, pressing that knife in, making contact with the pit until we come all the way around. Now, if your avocado is nice and ripe after you've done a full circle, it should split apart pretty easily like that. We got lucky today. Again, trying to test them at the store, it's a little bit of an art. You'll get used to figuring out which ones are ripe and which ones are ready. And then you get your avocado. So at this point, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna use a spoon and I'm gonna scoop out the avocado. And you just wanna slide the spoon as close to the edge of the skin as possible. And one thing I forgot to mention is I did rinse this avocado before cutting into it. And the reason that's important is you want to rinse any fruit and vegetable that you're going to prepare, even if you're not planning to eat the skin of it. Dirt and contaminants can come into contact with the skin, and you want to make sure that you've rinsed those off, because when you cut into it, you might be pressing those further inside of the fruit or the vegetable. So always a good idea to wash and rinse them. So you can see I used the spoon, scooped out most of that avocado flesh. If you find you leave some behind, like it wasn't a super clean scoop, you can always go back in and dig a little bit of that extra out. So now I will go ahead and repeat the same on the other side. Now, of course, the pit is not something that we're going to throw into the food processor. Like I mentioned, it's about as hard as a rock. So you can use that spoon to just scoop it out. You can kind of dig around it a little bit. Some people will also, they'll take the knife and they'll sort of slam into it like that, and then you can pull it out. Whatever works for you, both options are good options. Just be careful if you're using the knife method. You don't want to miss that, obviously. Now, unfortunately, this happens sometimes. I did get a little bit of the peel left behind from the avocado when I tried to scoop it. If it's not fully ripe, you'll actually get pieces of it that'll stick a little bit there. This happens, not a big deal. You'll get your hands a little dirty. You can just reach and you should be able to pull that off, no problem. But make sure to remove that skin. We don't want to have that going into the food processor, because that's not going to taste good to have blended up there. Let me grab a napkin here and wipe my hands off because I got avocado all over them now. So the reason we're using an avocado is it is an incredibly heart-healthy fat. It provides us with a little bit of fiber as well, but the main benefit is we're getting non-saturated fats or unsaturated fats. Those are going to be good for our cholesterol levels and our heart health. Our body does need fat. It's an important and key nutrient, and getting it from healthy sources like nuts, seeds, and avocados is a great way to ensure we're staying healthy. So now we've got the avocados and chickpeas in here, and you'll see I'm using a pretty small food processor today. I do have a really big Ninja one that you may have seen me use before. It probably would have been a better use for this, but I wanted to demonstrate that even if you've got a small one, because they are a little bit of an investment, you can get by and make some pretty creative recipes with it. So we're going to really pack it in here today to showcase that you can do this even with a really small one, and you can pick up a tiny one like this for not too much money at all. So let's add a little more flavor to it. We're going to do a tablespoon of lemon juice and pour that over the top. That's going to give it that nice kind of acidic, tangy flavor to it. We're going to add 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. So really not too much salt. And I mentioned trying to use the lower sodium chickpeas. Again, we're trying to keep the salt as low as we can. And then we'll do 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. And then last, but certainly not least, we want to give some garlic to it. Hummus always has that garlicky flavor. We're going to do, if you use fresh garlic, you can do 2 cloves of fresh garlic. If you're using minced garlic, we're just going to do 1 teaspoon. So this is a 1/2 teaspoon scoop that I'm using here, so I'm going to do 2 of these. And of course, you can put in more or less garlic if you desire. I'm a pretty big fan of garlic. Sometimes I'll increase the garlic in the recipes I'm making just because I like the flavor so much. So what you may have to do as you're blending, if you're using a really small food processor like me, is having a spatula nearby. You may need to push the edges down a little bit to make sure it blends properly, but we'll give this a go. This may be loud on the microphone, so I apologize, and we're just going to pulse it until it's smooth. Okay. And like I mentioned, in the small, and I'll kind of show you what I'm working with here, in the small food processor, I can see that it started blending, but I can take a look and see there's still some whole chickpeas and stuff like that, and that's just because of the size of the container we're using. So we can push everything down with a spatula, get it a little bit closer to those blades. If you're using a larger food processor, you probably won't run into this issue at all because the blades will be a little bigger, and they'll pick up on everything without a problem. Also got some chickpeas stuck in the lid there. Interesting. I have not had that happen before when making this. So we'll get those guys out. Okay, so now we'll just give it another pulse because we've pushed things down, trying to get them evenly mixed. Okay, so that's looking a little better. It's a little hard to see on the camera, but the chickpeas are going to become a brown color, and then the avocado is going to be that green color. We're trying to get that to all be mixed together evenly. This is looking pretty good to me. You can decide how smooth you want it to be. If you've bought store-bought hummus before, things like Sabra hummus, for example, very, very smooth. It's almost like butter. Some hummuses, though, do have more texture in them. You might have more of the chickpeas. Some of them even have chickpeas on top of the hummus to kind of enhance the texture. That's entirely up to you, so you can make this as smooth as you want to. I'm pretty happy with this, though. The ingredients look well mixed, so I'm going to set it aside, and we will continue with our dish. So I'm going to clear some of this avocado off the cutting board here, just make a little room. We're going to be using a couple key vegetables to add to our pitas. One of them is going to be the tomato. Now for the tomato, we just want to cut it into slices. If you have a serrated knife where it's got the little like sawtooth edges on it, that's going to be a good choice. You absolutely can cut a tomato with a regular knife, but the serrated knife allows you to cut into it a little more controlled, and it usually makes for an easier slicing process, for me at least. You may have a different experience. So we're just going to cut the tomato into some slices. Now, tomatoes are incredibly nutritious. I talk about them a lot when we do these cooking demonstrations. I always try to work them into things. They're a good source of vitamin A. They're a good source of vitamin C. They've got potassium in them. So all these things are going to help with like our immune system, our cell health. It's going to help with our blood pressure control. Potassium can help with that. And then tomatoes are also a source of lycopene, which is an antioxidant, which means it's got some cancer-fighting properties. So all very, very good things that we're looking at here. I'm going to cut these slices, because these are pretty big slices. I'm going to actually cut them in half, because it will make it a little easier to fit into our pita here in a moment. So just using one medium tomato, I'm going to set these slices over to the side now. Getting a little crowded on my cutting board, but that's okay. And then the next vegetable we're going to use is a cucumber. You'll really only need about half of the cucumber, so if you want to save the other half for maybe putting in a salad or something like that, you absolutely can. Similar idea, we are going to just cut this into slices. Now, cucumbers are mostly water, but they do contribute some fiber and some other nutrients to our diet. The nice thing about any vegetable, when we talk about the water content, is that they will actually help you meet your hydration needs for the day. So if you're someone who is working on making sure you're drinking enough water, staying hydrated, fruits and vegetables naturally have water in them, and that can help you meet that goal. So that's a nice little added bonus. So we've chopped up some cucumbers. Those are looking good. And now the next step is we're going to be putting this on pita bread. Now, I bought 100% whole wheat pita bread, and I encourage you to do the same. The benefit of the whole wheat pita bread is it's going to have more fiber in it, more protein, and more B vitamins. So if you've ever gone to buy like bread or rice before, there's white bread and white rice, and then there's whole wheat bread or brown rice. Whole wheat pitas, that's the nutritional kind of equivalent of like whole wheat bread. So just a little more vitamins and minerals, a little more protein, a little bit healthier for us as well. Now, I have a tendency when I'm making wraps, pitas, sandwiches to overfill whatever I'm making because I'm excited to cram the vegetables in there. One thing you can do is microwave them for just a couple seconds. It will soften the bread up and make it more malleable, so it is less likely to tear when you're trying to fill it. So I'm going to microwave it for just a couple seconds here. And we're not necessarily trying to make it very hot, just warming it a little bit. So really just a couple seconds. So after about 10 seconds, I can feel it's warm. I'm going to use my knife, and we're just going to cut it in half, right down the middle. And now we've got these pita pockets that we can fill with our hummus and our vegetables here. So in terms of nutrition, this recipe has about 10 grams of protein in a serving, and a serving is just going to be one of the pita bread halves. It's only 250 calories, so you could potentially pair it with something else, like a piece of fruit or something else on the side, or you might double up on it and do a full pita, which would be about 500 calories, which is not a bad target to aim for if you're trying to do like a healthy lunch meal there. If you are a more athletic or active person, or just a larger person, you may need a little more food than that for your needs, so you can kind of adjust accordingly. So what we'll do now is we'll try to do it with the spatula. We'll see how it works. Sometimes it's better to do it with a spoon, but we're going to scoop some of this into each of the pita pockets here. About 2 tablespoons per pita pocket is what we're aiming for. This should make 4 total servings. Okay, so we'll layer that in, and then I'll go ahead and layer this other one as well. And if you want to make leftovers with this, what I recommend doing is storing the hummus in a separate airtight container and the vegetables in another airtight container. You don't really want to mix the veggies and the hummus in advance. It'll soften the texture a little bit and things might get a little mushy. So definitely try to keep those separate. So we've got that nice layer of hummus in there. Now I'm going to take some of those tomato halves and just fit them in. You can see how they're kind of the same shape because I cut them in half. So I'm just going to press those into the back there. Let's get some cucumber slices in there. And then over to the side, I've got about a cup of just mixed greens because I think that complements it nicely, gives it a little more crunch. And that's really it. This is an incredibly simple, I'm gonna lose some lettuce there. Like I said, I like to really pack that in. This is an incredibly simple, about 5 to 10 minute lunch recipe you can make. In terms of nutrition, I mentioned it's 250 calories for 1/2 of the pita. If you do the full pita, it's about 500. There's 10 grams of protein in it and 8 grams of fiber, which means if you eat 1 serving of this, that's 30% of your daily fiber in just half of the pita, which is awesome. A lot of us don't get enough fiber. We're not doing enough fruits and vegetables and whole grains. And this recipe is nothing but vegetables and whole grains. So we're really helping meet that. Fiber is beneficial because it can help us feel more satisfied on less food. It can help control our blood sugar. And it can help us have a healthier cholesterol level as well. So the nutritional benefits of fiber and the vegetables that we've packed into this are immense. Like I mentioned, for storage, I'd recommend keeping this hummus in an airtight container with a lid on it. Any of the vegetables you've chopped up, the tomatoes, the cucumbers, go ahead and put them in a separate airtight container, and then you can just assemble in the morning or at lunchtime whenever you're planning to enjoy the food. They'll be good in the fridge for 3 to 4 days. That's kind of your standard leftover time. So this does work well for a pretty simple meal prep, but I also like to do it as just a day of recipe where maybe you're working from home or it's a weekend and you just want to whip something together. Very, very easy, incredibly nutritious, and affordable as well. The can of chickpeas is about $1. The avocado and the vegetables we purchased are not too expensive, so you can get some good mileage out of this and know that you are taking care of your body. So we are going to be sending out a copy of the recipe from today, so you can see the nutrition information and the step-by-step breakdown of how to make it. We'll also be uploading this video so that you can watch it again or share it with a colleague if you want to. I'm going to take a look at the chat and just see if we have any questions that I can help address. Okay, so question about substitutions. I know not everyone's crazy about tomatoes or cucumbers. People have different flavor and texture opinions there. You can really substitute any vegetable you want for this. I'm using just like a spring mix for this. You could do kale, you could do romaine lettuce, any green, spinach would work really well in this that you enjoy. As for the vegetables that we put in the middle, if there's something you might imagine putting on like a sandwich, like a turkey sandwich or something like that, it could work well here. You could potentially do like bell pepper pieces if you wanted to try something more interesting to get that crunch and flavor in there. But really anything that you can imagine biting into that would work well in a sandwich will complement this nicely. This is entirely plant-based. If you wanted to add an animal protein to this, I could see trying to work in maybe doing like some small pieces of grilled chicken that you've chopped up and put in there. That would boost the protein content a little bit. So for people looking to do that, that could also be an option. All right. And I don't see any other questions today. So like I said, pretty simple recipe, very quick and easy to move through. One of my favorites for whenever I'm just having a busy week and I want something nutritious for me. So keep an eye out in your email. We'll be sending out a copy of the recipe. We'll also include a link to a short survey where you can let us know what you thought of today's session. and maybe give some feedback on things you might like to see in the future. We're always looking for that feedback to help improve and grow our programs. Speaking of our programs, I do want to announce 2 that we have coming up tomorrow. Tomorrow on Friday, if you are at the Clarkston campus, we're going to be doing a Clarkston Fall Festival walk. So we'll be getting there around 9:30 a.m. We'll have a table set up where we'll be giving out some treats and kind of celebrating fall. And then we'll go for a walk around 10 or 10:30. We'll have a nice gathering and take the Panther Trail around the Clarkston campus. So we're really excited for that. Also tomorrow at 12 o'clock, we'll be having our monthly guided meditation followed by yoga. So you can view that from online. No matter what campus you're on, you are very encouraged to participate in that. If you don't already get our event emails, you should email us at edws@gsu.edu. We can get you on our mailing list and make sure that you never miss any of our cooking demonstrations or other events that we do. With that being said, I just want to say thank you everyone for attending today and hope you have a great rest of your day. I also see Tony just dropped that email in the chat, so you can copy that, shoot us that email, and we'll get you on the mailing list. So thank you again, everyone. Have a great day.